Welcome everybody to the Magic Table. I guess it's been a while since we've done a little Magic Table.
It has been a minute.
So I thought maybe we could explain a little bit about what the Magic Table is and why we do this. So we have Theology of Hustle, which are these interviews that I do about people in random jobs, about God's kingdom and all that stuff. And interspersed in there, usually about once a month, is the Magic Table. Do you remember why we call it the Magic Table, JJ?
I do.
What do you want to explain to everybody why?
So the Magic Table was actually named by our friend Jen, who brought her, I don't remember if they were engaged yet, doesn't matter, boyfriend, fiance to our house for a meal. And as we sat around our table and shared a meal together, she explained to Josh that our table was magical.
Yep.
Because you lose track of time there and you share things that you are surprised that you would share at a table. And like, it was this moment of clarity, I think, for us of like, this is who we are.
Yeah.
We believe deeply that our table is magical, not the table itself, just to be clear. Although that could be a whole vibe, that our table is magical.
That's fair.
But that our, I think, ministry, our life is creating space for story. And that is facilitated around a table where we enjoy food, sometimes a beverage, and just get to know people. Yeah. And so our table is sacred. Mm-hmm. And as we have transitioned to a different life in Texas, we have had to like refigure out how do we bring that vibe to this space. And I think like that is something we're able to bring from our Illinois community to Texas community.
Well, yes. So being around our table is magic. And what we try to do in this podcast is sort of bring that to the listening ears and now viewing eyes of people, where this is like just kind of real conversations about life.
Yeah. And like our hope is that these conversations that you and I have feels like you are sitting at a table, our table, with us, sharing a meal. Like these are honest, authentic conversations. And I think it's like an integral part of who we are as a couple and as a family. Yeah.
So once again, welcome to the Magic Table. If it's your first time here, if it's your, 20th time here, welcome.
Who knows?
Yeah. So we are actually recording on our 20th anniversary, which is kind of wild.
Kind of wild. And is that what people do to celebrate their
anniversary?
Everybody
does. Yeah, actually. Everybody either starts or continues a podcast on their 20th anniversary. Well, yeah. So we went to the most basic place that we always go to for dinner, just the two of us. It was magic.
Okay. It was just the two of us because our children were like, y'all should go to dinner. We're going to stay home and figure out dinner for ourselves, which, to be fair, there was lots of options. They had lots of choices.
It's like cereal.
Stop it. They had actual food choices.
They did.
And
including cereal.
And they chose cereal.
Yes.
And like the beauty that our kids were like, y'all go to dinner. We've got this. Feels like 20 is a big deal.
Yeah.
But the fact that our children literally were like, go out to dinner.
That's true.
That feels like my milestone.
That's true. It's also a symbol of depriving them of screen time during the summer. They're like, we'll do anything for screen time. Let us
if y'all go to dinner, can we watch TV?
So we're not great parents is what we're saying. So
it's fine.
We make it work, right?
We make it work.
So but we're having a lot of conversations about 20 years of marriage and just like reflections on marriage. So, JJ's a therapist, so she sees a lot of people in relationships. We've done ministry together in some form for nearly all 20 years together. So we've seen a lot of that. And I think it's a good time for us to kind of stop and just reflect on what we've learned in 20 years of marriage and then kind of looking forward. So this is just kind of an open space for meandering about, what we I've learned about relationships, about marriage, about friendships, about parenting, kind of whatever,
all the things.
whatever happens.
Whatever happens.
Pretty unscripted here. So do you have a spot where you think we should start?
Yes.
Okay.
And we haven't talked about this yet. Surprise!
Love surprises.
I was thinking, even after coming home from dinner, just what has made us work.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of pieces to that.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking, though, something that we have joked a lot about and that I think for us was foundational is that I have joked about we took leave and cleave really seriously.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we were living in Chicago, which was a 16-hour drive from where
like 4
our whole family was.
States away from our support system.
Yeah.
And we really only had each other. And I think about, like, I did not have any friends, really. I had the Ryans and Vic, who were your precious friends, who welcomed me beautifully. Yeah. And as a, 22-year-old newly married, hanging out with your husband and 3 boys, young men, was, not ideal. And I just think about, even then, we were creating community. We wouldn't have named it that.
Yeah.
But, Moody was great for a lot of things for you.
Okay.
Moody was fine.
We can talk about that at some point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your cafeteria was not great.
Yeah. Moody was strict in a lot of significant ways.
Yes. And I was trying to figure out how to cook and feed you.
Yeah.
So it was amazing to call the boys, which I fondly called my 3 friends who were yours, and be like, hey, I tried a new pie. It's really ugly, but tastes good. Do y'all want to come over and eat it? I'm trying to figure out how to make spaghetti. I made too much food. And so even, I think, early on, we were clamoring for community.
Yeah.
I was clamoring for community.
Yeah.
And we started inviting people to our table. I was thinking about it. We only had 4 chairs. We had this little, white table that I bought at a garage sale that only had 4 chairs. When the 5 of us ate, I don't even know.
We sat on the couch. I mean, that apartment was not that big.
No,
there was no
not that
dining
big.
area. You had to take down the dining table to take out the couch bed if somebody wanted to stay the night. So,
I just think part of what formed us from the beginning that not everyone can replicate is we truly only had each other and we had to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. There wasn't, I guess I struggle here because I don't necessarily recommend replicating what we did.
For sure.
I mean, we were on our own and we had support systems if we needed it, but it felt like that was a million miles away, especially in those days. I mean, pre-cell phone, well, at least social media on cell phone.
You could not text at that time. Right. When we were married, texting did not yet exist.
So I guess being far from your support systems isn't hey, marriage tip number 1, go away from all your support systems, because that could be pretty dangerous in a lot of ways.
Totally detrimental. Right? Yeah. And because that was our scenario and that was our circumstances, we had to figure it out. And I don't think about that season enough, probably because, there's parts that we were also blocking out because it was just kind of hard.
Yeah.
And it gave us, and maybe started our enmeshment as well, but gave us this, it was me and you against the world.
Yeah, that's true.
And often felt that way. Mm-hmm. And that's what we were building on in those early years of marriage.
Yeah, I agree. And so I guess you started with what makes us work. I wouldn't say that that's what makes us work. That's a part of our story, but not something you would replicate. This isn't hey, here's a marriage tip. Do you see my distinction there?
I do. And I also think we're not the only people who have ever moved far away from their support system. And I think because of where we were, we started creating our own community. I think about the next year when we were in Bridgeport was where we hosted our first rando Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And so like, while it's maybe not prescriptive for all people, some of these things that we implement now about bringing people together, we also hosted a Super Bowl party because I think the Bears, that second year of marriage, the Bears were in the Super Bowl.
I don't know. It was just an excuse to have people over.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like some of these things that we were figuring out in our early years are actually things that have been a thread through the entirety of our relationship.
I guess I want to distill that just a little bit if I can, because I don't necessarily think that it was the like going far away and that sort of aspect that made it important. Because I think it's possible to go really far away, to move far away from your family and still depend on them monetarily, emotionally a lot of times. You know, there can be some, for young married people, there can be some dependencies that don't go away early in marriage. And I think if I could distill what you're saying down to one thing, it would be that we learn to depend on one another and not the family systems which we used to depend on. Yeah. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's a good distillation.
Because like leaving Cleve could be actually a little sketchy. You know what I mean? Like, well, if somebody is sort of a domineering, let's say, male partner, you're like, hey, don't leave and cleave.
Yes.
Then you're dependent on him.
Yeah, and he's going to cut you off from all your family. No, I think that's helpful.
So I think, but this mentality that it's, once you are married, the two of you need to learn to start depending on one another.
Yes.
Right? Not one of us depending on one, both of us depending on one person, but dependence on one another, I think, is a really good early skill. And you can most effectively do that by moving really far away and having no money. That's like a great way to do that. I don't know that people, especially nowadays where there's so much more connection, it seems like, with your family of origin, I don't know that young married couples are always find that as easy as we did.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay, cool. That's good. I think that's a great distillation of where we came from. What else kind of jumps out to you since you had done this, like, kind of what makes us work sort of thing?
Well, I think the other piece that I have kind of been thinking about is just like how everyone that I know who's gotten married is hopeful that they stay married.
Yeah.
That is like kind of the premise.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think as I've been reflecting on marriage, right, there's this celebration of engagement and weddings. And there's also this celebration of like, you've made it 30, 40, 50 years.
Really? I mean, really 40 to 50. Right? And most, like 50's the big one, right? That really a lot of people, that's usually when the party happens and all of that stuff. Yeah, for sure.
And so I think, while I think it is really important to celebrate those milestones, if we're not talking about what I would refer to as the messy middle, which is where I think at 20 years, you are solidly in the messy middle.
Yeah.
Like, how are we telling people, like, we're celebrating your engagement and your marriage, and we celebrate you when you hit 50, but like, how are we having conversation in these middle years? How are we encouraging prioritization of your marriage? And so, even at dinner tonight, I was telling you that, like, I think I understand more in our last couple of years than I have ever before about what leads people kind of in these middle years to a place of divorce.
Yeah. I think we should talk about that. Because you see a lot of this stuff.
I see so much of this in my work.
Yeah.
And I think, right, there's this, you get married and people are like, marriage is work. And you were like young and in love, and you can't fathom what that means. I also think I can't speak for other people. For myself, when I think about work, that seems hard to me.
Yeah, like work has to be difficult. So when somebody says marriage is work, you're like, oh, it's a grind.
It's a grind.
Yeah.
And I feel like, again, I think it was our first year because we were with Ray and Kelly. We went to this marriage conference with another friend who was in their first year of marriage. And we actually left the marriage conference and like went and hung out for the day.
That's very us though. Like,
well, because it was for people in a different season of life. They were talking about like the hardships and the challenges of marriage. And we were all like, we have been married less than a year and we're having a great time.
Yeah.
And having this awareness of like, y'all are much farther along than we are. And I'm not honestly at a place to receive what you're trying to tell me.
That's fair.
And so I love that we had another couple that were like, do you want to go get lunch and coffee like outside of this place? And we did that. But I think it's this idea that like marriage is work, which is true. But I also think it's not this like every day is a slog kind of mindset. It's a, how am I intentionally prioritizing you in my day-to-day life?
Yeah.
And that is the work from my perspective. And so many people that I work with professionally, there is so much career, personally, your family of origin, you have an aging parent, you have any number of things happen that just takes your attention from your partner.
Yeah.
And 6 months later, you look up and it's like, we are disconnected. And if you're not in a place emotionally, mentally to return and like try to repair that relationship, like, of course that leads.
It's just like these slow driftings turn into chasms over time.
And no one is like 2 weeks into a trauma, a stressor, a whatever, looking at their partner like, how is this going to impact us long term?
Yeah.
And yet you find yourself months in thinking, who is this person that I'm married to? Resentment can build, like so much can happen. And so there is like a daily or weekly acknowledgement of like, I am choosing to prioritize you. I'm checking in with where we're at, and we're always recalibrating. Like, I don't feel like even at 20 years that we've arrived.
No. No. There's still work to be done. I like what you're saying, because I think something you're touching on here that may not be totally apparent to everybody is that struggles in marriage aren't always marital things.
100%.
Right? It's all these external forces, and it could be kids, because that's something you share together, but it could be work, it could be all of these other things that you don't think is affecting my marriage, and yet those are the things kind of constantly pulling you in those different directions, right?
And if you're not acknowledging that, like, we have had seasons of, hey, I'm needing to prioritize this.
Yeah.
How are we circling back? How are we making sure we're still okay?
Right.
How do you still feel known, seen, and cared for while I'm navigating this other tricky thing?
Yeah.
Versus allowing those chasms to grow, that one day you look up and you think, I don't like this person. Maybe I don't like myself. And this doesn't feel worth it anymore.
Yeah, there's a lot of internal work, like you said, that goes into that. There is a lot there. So this concept of work, you were talking about, it's not necessarily that it's difficult or a daily slog or something. Mm-hmm. And I get that. What would you say what would you call the work of marriage? Because I think in the past we've taught seminars probably, and like our big things were like, hey, you need to be on kind of weekly date nights, or prioritizing date nights, which I don't know that you would argue with that. We've talked about different other ways of like connecting, like doing our kind of quarterly check-ins or something. Are those the things you see as the sort of work of marriage, or are there other things that you see as kind of that work?
Honestly, I think it's much more basic than that. I think those are pieces, but if you are not somewhat consistently looking at your partner and wondering, am I meeting their expectations? Is there something different that I could be doing? Are my expectations being met?
I was going to say, do we need to have a whole expectations conversation?
You know how I feel about expectations.
I mean, expectations are one of those things that just go hidden forever. Sorry, I didn't mean to derail you, but I mean, expectations are huge in relationships.
And so I think it is so much easier, instead of doing the reflective work of how am I feeling it in my marriage, how am I and I think we'll use our own story, I think, as an example of we have gotten quicker at naming those things, right? Like, hey, I felt hurt when you said this thing.
Yes, I would very much agree with that.
Hey, this didn't feel good. I'm feeling a way towards you or about you, versus letting that fester.
Early in marriage, it was like weeks would go by. And then the thing might keep happening again and again and again. And you're just like so mad and like, how do they not say that this is hurting me?
Yeah.
And you finally blow up.
Yes.
Right?
There's an ugliness that shows up. And it's like, oh my gosh, if I would have just said, I felt really hurt when you said this. Could you do it different next time? Could we have a conversation about how that made me feel? It's such a different experience.
Yeah,
and
key.
So I think what we have learned is you have that conversation.
Get it out there.
Yes.
But in order to feel comfortable getting it out there, you have to expect that it's going to be well received.
Yes.
And if you know that it's not going to be well received, it is very hard to say those true things. So I want to put a line in the sand right here. And I want to say that, we talk a lot about hey, do we fight enough? Do we not fight enough? How do we navigate these things in marriage? That we do all of these things to make good marriages. There's all these books and everything. And there's I'm going to put a line in the sand. I'm going to say there's one key to a healthy, happy marriage, and it is humility. Okay.
Tell me more about that.
Well, if you're going to confront me about something I'm doing, and I'm going to be mad about it and stand up and be defensive about it and not receive it, what does that teach you?
That you are not emotionally safe for me to have a conversation
Exactly. With. And so you stop coming to me with those things, and what starts happening to you? You fester. Right?
I resent you.
You resent. It builds resentment. And that resentment over time is what destroys a lot of marriages. It what causes affairs a lot of times. Not every time, but humility. If both partners can practice simple humility and giving the other one the benefit of the doubt, I think a lot of these things, none of this stuff matters. How much you fight doesn't really matter. People fight differently. There's no hey, I don't fight enough. We fight too much. There's really no, I guess there's no 3-step process to a good marriage. And there's no necessarily signs of hey, this is healthy because you're doing A, B, and C. It's how are you approaching the other person? Yeah.
Right. And how is that built over? That is also something that's built over time.
Yep.
And I think it's this idea, right, of felt safety that I know we can disagree.
Yep.
And I feel safe enough emotionally to be we do not see eye to eye on this thing. And I don't feel like you're hearing my perspective. Just because I express my perspective does not mean it changes how you see things.
Yeah.
And I know that you value my voice enough that I am comfortable and confident to express it.
Yeah. I think that's good. I feel like we've meandered, which I expected. Do you feel like we talked enough about sort of the messy middle and kind of what needs to be done in that?
Well, I think part of it is just acknowledging that's where you are.
Yeah.
I think there's something to like, the reality is, I mean, it's currently summer, so it's not the same monotony, but like school will start again, thank you, Jesus, in August.
Yes.
And we will get back to a rhythm and routine.
Yeah.
And it is so easy to get lost in the rhythm and routine of your children that you miss each other. And I think it's, again, how are you being intentional? And like that can be 100 different ways. Like we always watch this show on Tuesday nights and that's how we connect. Are we having a family dinner? Are we having a weekly date? Like weekly date night sounds lovely. Can you actually afford that and have childcare and all the things? Like
it's not practical for everyone, for sure.
No. And so what is practical for you? And I think there is so much on Instagram currently about like that is prescriptive. And I think it is a disservice to yourself and to your partner to find some reel on Instagram and be like,
oh no, that's what I've been doing.
Stop it. But I just think like we see these like clips or reels or sound bites and we put all of that on a partner versus like, hey, I saw this and it resonated with me. What is it speaking to you? Like to even assume sometimes I show you things and you don't really care about them the same way that I do, which is fine.
I can't always read them. You like hold the phone up and I'm like, I what does it say? I can't read that from across. Yeah.
Right. But to even think with a partner that you show them something that like resonates deeply with you, that they as a completely different person with a completely different personality and skill set, it's going to resonate in the same way. Like those are the easiest places that resentment starts to crack and / build.
Yeah.
Right. And so I show you things that I think are funny all the time that you don't always respond to in the same way that I do. And I'm like, I don't care. This is a part of me showing you where I'm at, what's resonating with me. I don't need you to be like, oh my gosh, I 100% agree with everything that says. It's kind of this like self-expression of like, this meant something to me. And sometimes you'll ask questions of like,
why did you think that was funny? Is that sort of question?
I mean, sometimes. And right, it's where are we creating conversation? And sometimes it's even the like, hey, are there places in our week that we could split up to do tasks? And really to stay connected, we need to do this as a couple, sometimes as a family.
Yeah.
Sometimes we drag children who are not involved in activity to an activity because we're like, hey, guess what? We need to be together. And I think sometimes we so focus on this family piece of like, are we having family connecting times or all my kids feeling seen and known? We forget our partner on that journey.
I think that's good. I think I'll try. I want to try to distill that down again.
Okay.
Like we did last time. I think marriage relationships, a lot like parenting, is a lot about creativity. And it's a lot about figuring out something may not be working and desiring to like try something new. Mm-hmm. Like this approach with my child is not working. Let's try something else. Maybe humor or play needs to come in here. We talk a lot about that in trauma-informed parenting, right? How do we play? And I think it's a lot in relationships too. Like maybe a weekly date night is not feasible, right? It's probably a good thing, maybe not feasible. How can we find a creative solution to that where we still can meet that need, a relational need, in a creative way that doesn't necessarily cost that much money? Is it, putting the kids on their own movie so we can watch something together or whatever it is. And I think understanding that different seasons are going to call for different creative solutions, right? Yes. There's not going to be a like thing you establish at 2 years that's still going to work at 10 years, most likely.
Yeah.
There's a lot of changes that happen in there, and the willingness to like to bend and to try something new, I think is key to any healthy relationship. And I think most importantly, a marriage relationship. How are you being creative? How are you meeting that need in a way that maybe, you haven't before, right? But you can now,
Yeah. I just think about right, in a previous season when we had littler kids and I was working, nights.
Yeah.
It was that text of want to get Portillo's ? On
your way home at 8:30?
Yes.
Did not lead to a lot of healthy patterns, I would say, like eating
it's
patterns.
Fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. Cheese fries and
we were
Italian
in our
beef
early 30s.
at 9 p.m. is really where it's at. We also learned we had to hide the trash because the kids would get mad.
They knew. They saw
that they didn't get Portillo's.
Yeah.
But it kind of became this pattern of when I get home, the kids, you, Sweet Curry, would have put the children to bed.
Yep.
Everyone was asleep. And I got to bring this dinner home. We would sit on our living room floor and have a meal together. Not super glamorous or sexy. And it was just this fairly consistent pattern that worked for us.
Yeah.
We are now in a season. Last night, we told our kids, we are going to bed. Put yourselves to bed.
Yeah.
Our big kids. And realizing that pattern will not work in this season. And I think sometimes we just get so accustomed to patterns that we're not curious or creative anymore. And I totally agree. I think that curiosity of how are we connecting in this season that we're in is super important.
Yeah. Okay. So we've talked about a lot of things. I'd love to hear if you were going back to 22-year-old JJ, we're getting married. What would you tell 20-year-old JJ about life?
This is not the answer that you want.
I have no expectations.
Okay.
See that? Keeping the expectations low.
I think there was such a beauty to how naive we were about, we were just deeply in love. Yeah. And I don't know that I could have told myself anything that would have changed. If I'm being honest, I couldn't have told myself anything about anything because I was 22. I was moving to Chicago and I knew everything about everything.
Yeah.
I think more than what I would tell myself, I think there's this looking back with compassion over our different seasons of oh, y'all were trying so hard, or, oh, that was so hard and you didn't know in that season whether it was loneliness or insecurity. And so, I really think my answer was I couldn't have heard anything from anyone because I just thought that I knew everything.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And at the time, I wouldn't have said that was true.
No way. At 22, you have to. There's an idealism there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was ready to save the world and bring on Chicago. And so I think for me, it's less about what I could tell that version and more of that sweet girl.
She had no idea that life was going to spend 20 years just kicking the dog out of her.
She just didn't know what she didn't know. And she really made some bad safety choices with her job choices.
Yeah.
And it's fine. I distinctly remember a call with my dad when I was doing my internship in grad school. And he said, I just think there are some things that you shouldn't tell your mother. And I think about that of just this unaware, I was trying to bring good into the world and I couldn't imagine that anyone would want to harm me while I did that work. And I think there's while she just didn't know a lot of things, there's a real beauty of she was just ready to do whatever it took to change the world and she was all in.
People hide a lot of things from their parents at 22. The insanity of their jobs, unless they're, stripping or something is not usually one of those.
I think it was when the cops told me to stop going to an apartment complex at night to see a client that I didn't know I shouldn't be there. For real, I can tell you like where I was driving that my dad was like, I don't know. So sorry, Mom, I love you. I know you're listening to this episode.
Still don't want to know.
But I think there is also like a beauty to that youngness of like, and a hopefulness, right? And I think part of what we learned is even, I think by our 5-year mark, we had several friends whose marriages had already ended. And that taught me things about relationship and marriage that I couldn't have taught myself.
Well, because we were all in that together,
yeah.
right? It's not like some of us got into marriage and were serious about it and others didn't, right? We were all in this together doing it for the same reasons. We were all madly in love, and like stuff happens outside of your control, right? And like you can be as sincere as you want to and all the things and as hopeful as you want to be, and the reality is that stuff's gonna happen.
Stuff happens,
right? And I think that's a great takeaway. Maybe have a little grace with ourselves. Some, you know. You know what I would tell Curry?
What?
I don't really know.
I was like, is this awkward then that I need to ask you what you would tell yourself? No, you don't have to ask.
It would be nice if you asked, but if you don't want to know, it's fine. I don't know. I probably one thing I would say to Curry is to start therapy maybe a little bit earlier.
Huh.
I don't know. That's not just a plug for your business, but I think you don't always know how unhealthy you are sometimes, and especially like I give you a lot of crap for being kind of on fire and going to save the world, but I was there in so many ways, and going into ministry and the idealism of ministry, not knowing that, in the same way, the next 20 years, we're just going to be like proving how tough life can be in a lot of ways. Right. And so like, I was just as idealistic. I didn't make as stupid of decisions as you did with my personal safety and like sort of places where I choose to do that sort of ministry, but very idealistic. And it's easy when you're idealistic and you want to save the world to start meeting emotional needs through helping others.
Yeah.
It's a very simple thing. And so I wonder how much pain I could have saved myself and possibly us, by just having kind of walk down an emotional journey a little bit earlier. And at the same time, like you don't know what you don't know in so many ways. And so I don't know if you're 22 and listening to this and wondering how, you can have a happier marriage. I'd say therapy is never a bad way to go with that, at least kind of get a ground floor of where you're at, understand your family of origin culture, the things that you're bringing into the relationship. It's not going to hurt.
Yeah. Just like another therapy plug, because you put a mic in front of my face. I think, again, in that celebratory sense, we focus on premarital counseling, which I think is really important and helps people like set expectations and all the things. My favorite work when I was working with couples was to do first year marriage therapy, because those rose-colored glasses come off real quick.
Yeah.
And if you, in your first couple of years, realize like some things are different or not aligning in the way that I thought they would, what a beautiful gift to yourself, your partner, and your future selves to be like, how do we address this before it's a thing? And so I am, yes, premarital is helpful, but like first year of marriage therapy, I think is super, super helpful for people.
That's good. That's good. I know you've been spending a lot of time sort of thinking through marriage in a lot of ways, maybe as it pertains to God and, thinking about doing some teaching on some of this. Do you have any sort of high level like thoughts on that just while we're sitting here talking?
Okay. You open the door.
Okay.
We're going to walk
I'm
through
here for it. I'm here for it.
I think, as I've been thinking about this. Our unhealth in relationship, either what we've experienced in marriage or witnessed in our parents' marriage, impacts our ability to relate to God. Mm. And I think even if you have two people who believe they came from families of health, there is no way that health looked exactly the same in both of those relationships. Yep. And so when you are showing up and saying, this is what health looks like, and your partner is saying, no, this is what health looks like. And so, yes, again, to this idea of premarital versus postmarital therapy. In premarital, you have those big conversations. Do you want to have kids? Where do you want to live in the world? How do we spend money? What does a budget look like? Who does what in our home? Really important conversations to have. Like, do you want kids? Do you not want to have kids? Pretty important conversation.
Talk about that. Yes.
Before you choose marriage. And yet, there isn't conversation. Like, we have conversation of, do you want kids? We don't have conversation about, what do you envision parenting is going to look like?
Ooh.
Will one of us stay home? How do we feel about daycare? There's so much more to the conversation. And my belief, just as a human, as a therapist, we check mark, wants kids, check. Has a faith value system, check. And we do these really big check marks without exploring more depth of what they are. Now,
what does that look like practically, though? Because, there's a little bit I would have no idea.
100%.
Right?
And also, some basic things about, what do you feel about corporal punishment? Is that what you're thinking about? I think also who is staying home is someone staying home.
Yeah.
Conversation.
But would we have known? We wouldn't have known that I was
gonna stay
home.
No,
right.
And I think some exploration of do I have rigid expectations?
Yeah, okay. So it's more the expectations about that sort of thing than it is the planning out of those things. Okay.
You can think that you're going to be a gentle parent and then you have children and you're like, where's my gentleness?
Yeah.
Also, is that a value that we've established? How are we working together to meet this value?
Yeah. Cause there could be women who, right? All I've ever wanted to do is stay home. It's a non-negotiable that I'm staying home. There's men who are I would never stay home. That feels too feminine, right? I will never do that, even if the woman is the primary breadwinner and can make a lot more money, right? So I can see how even understanding the are these hills you're gonna die on before we kind of go down this road?
And how are we acknowledging that there is nuance in relationship, right? When we were 22, we had no idea our parenting styles and what our children would look like, all the things. And as those milestones start to happen, where is your nuance, your openness versus if you've never had a conversation, you've been married 5 years and you're having a baby and it's well, I always assumed you would stay home because my mom stayed home.
Right.
And that's being I would never stay home. I'm giving up my, I do think there are some pieces of setting expectations and what that looks like. And I often talk about, you've heard me, I'm a broken record about how we put forks in the dishwasher. Do we put them prongs up or prongs down? Because that is the easy fight to have. And it's really about how does someone do the laundry? How is someone parenting? How is someone setting boundaries? We would never have had conversation about what kind of boundaries are we going to set at work? And as you get into these rhythms, having curiosity and conversation around, is the amount of time I'm devoting to work working for our family? Is there a shift that could be made that would make you feel appreciated, seen, known versus I am an autonomous person who gets to make all my own choices.
Right.
And I think sometimes where there's disconnect in marriage is it's because we have a plan and a vision for what our family, career, marriage is going to look like, that we're not engaging in conversation with our partner about what practically, how that's going to play out. And so when you get 5, 7, 10 years in, and there's a total disconnect on what that looked like, yeah, there's a chasm that you're having to navigate. Whereas if when first baby's born, it's like, what is working for us in this season?
Yeah.
Okay, we're 2 years in. Now we're at baby number 2. The same thing is probably not going to work. And how are you working together to navigate like each new season and be aware of like, as we add children to our family, things are going to change. As someone's work responsibilities shift, things are going to have to change. And being like creative and curious about how do we make this work versus this is how we've always done it, so we're going to keep doing this way, even if like one person has building resentment around that.
So you're saying that we come into relationships with expectations, and a lot of times they're not vocalized before, or, you know, as we're going into things, right? So would you say that a similar thing happens in our relationship with God, in that we have expectations for how our life is going to look, and when God is not meeting our expectations, that we have similar relational rifts?
It's so annoying to me that I can like ramble on for 8 minutes and then you're like, let me succinctly say what you've been rambling on about. So annoying.
Sorry about that.
You're not sorry, and that's okay. Yes, I do think like if you have not seen health in relationship, and we have these like images of the church is the bride of Christ and all of these beautiful images that have been given to us through church, how do we reconcile that when that's not what our lived experience tells us? And so, of course, we bring our relational baggage to our relationship with God. And I think sometimes instead of like naming what that is, I mean, it can create shame. It can create resentment. You know, if someone points that out or is asking curious questions, it's way easier to point the finger at like the church or your partner or your pastor.
Or God.
Yes. And
it's a lot easier to be better with almost anybody else than to kind of
then do the reflective work of like, why is this making me feel this way? Why am I struggling relationally? And I think sometimes it's yes with God. I think sometimes it's with the church.
Yeah.
Or your local community. And it's way easier to point fingers and say, they are failing me. They have harmed me, which can be true.
Can be true, for sure.
And what relational baggage am I bringing to these relationships?
Yeah, I think that's good. I think that's a good thing for us to be thinking through. I can't believe 20 years. It's wild.
We were just babies. Who let us get married?
And still in the thick of it in so many ways. And I guess the reason we sat down here is that I hope this is an encouragement to you, right? Like, we're all in this together.
And there is no rubric.
Yeah.
You know, I think even people who come to therapy are so hopeful about like, I'm going to meet with JJ and she's going to give me like the 3 easy steps to improve. And like, yes, as you move towards health, hopefully you're moving towards health and relationship. And like, what I also tell my people is if there were 3 easy steps, I would write that book and I would sell it.
Deuces, I'm out.
And then I wouldn't do like, there's so much nuance to relationship. And so I guess like my encouragement would be stop looking for the how-to and like look at your partner, have the conversation. Like what is working? Part of our quarterly check-in, like what is working for us and what is not? And how are we leaving the things that like are no longer serving us and moving toward that place of health?
Yeah, I think that's good. Hopefully this is an encouragement to y'all. If you have stuff that needs to be brought to the magic table, we would love to hear that and talk about all sorts of random stuff and fun stuff and interesting stuff. So love to hear it. We appreciate you taking time and being with us, and we'll see you next time at the magic table.